Thank you very much, Jennifer. Good morning.
Good morning.
It is truly an honor to be here today as chair of the State Lands Commission and to take part with all of you today at the 12th Biennial Prevention First Symposium and Technology Exhibition. I want to thank Chris and Jennifer and Tom for just kicking the morning off. But more importantly, I need to just say something about OSPR and the State Lands Commission. You know, I've been in state government for a very, very long time, and I don't think you will find anywhere in state government where you see such dedication of the staff with respect to the work that they do. It is a staff of experts. It is a staff very dedicated to the mission of the organization. And more importantly, it is a staff that is innovative, because we know that as the world continues to change around us, oftentimes government lags in terms of how we respond to changes around us. But I've just been so thrilled in my capacity as a member of the State Lands Commission, and certainly chairing it this year, to have the opportunity to work with such stellar partners in state government, and certainly with Jennifer's leadership at the State Lands Commission. We are all in good hands. So thank you very much. Let's give them a round of applause. So I don't know about you, but I feel like a kid in a candy shop being here, right? And so, you know, we have experts that are convened here and sharing a wealth of information, and all really with the common goal of advancing pollution prevention and certainly the protection of our marine resources. You know, besides chairing the State Lands Commission, I am California's Chief Fiscal Officer, and so the lens through which I really view a lot of policy issues is really being aware of the financial costs of action and inaction. And with respect to what we're talking about today, the financial costs of environmental degradation and the impact on business, jobs, and the economy. Now, I stand here as the Chief Fiscal Officer of the 6th largest economy in the world, and it is an economy that's diverse. We are very, very fortunate in California to have a diverse economy, so that when we have downturns, hopefully we are not sinking to the very bottom of the heap, but that we have the ability to be resilient, because we do have such a diverse economy. And I will say that the marine economy is certainly a big part of that. And so I just want to talk a little bit about some of the successes, because oftentimes we don't take note about accomplishments. Particularly in an area like this, the headlines get made when bad things happen, right? And very little time is spent on just celebrating the things that we've been able to accomplish, but more importantly, the ability to just deal with, hopefully, preventing more bad things from happening. And so just a little bit of a historical perspective. It's been 25 years since the groundbreaking Lemper-Keene Sea Strand Oil Spill Prevention and Response Act. And as Jennifer introduced me, I formerly was a member of the State Board of Equalization, and we administer over 35 different tax and fee programs. And so when we talk about the revenue for oil spill prevention and response, when we talk about how we deal with ballast waters, all of those fees and special assessments and taxes are administered by the Board of Equalization. And we really very much appreciated our partnership with our policy organizations in state government, because obviously we want to get the collection and the administration right, but it only is right when we have clear direction about the objectives of the program. So very, very appreciative of the partnership. So the Act bolsters our oil spill prevention efforts. It created the Marine Environmental Protection Division at the State Lands Commission and the Office of Spill Prevention and Response within the Department of Fish and Wildlife. And for more than 2 decades, these agencies have worked diligently and, probably more importantly, collaboratively to prevent oil spills from occurring in California waters. And there are nearly 3 dozen marine oil terminals in California. And these terminals transfer approximately 2 million barrels of oil over water from ship to shore each day. Most of these marine oil terminals were built in the early 1900s, long before we had seismic safety standards were developed, long before environmental review requirements were written into law. From January 1st of 2015 through August 25th of this year, there were 9,841 tank vessel transfers in the state of California. The Marine Environmental Protection Division monitored 4,806 of them, nearly 49%. And out of more than the 1.16 million barrels involved in these monitored transfers, a total of 55.02 barrels of product were spilled. Now, when you consider what the magnitude of that is, obviously we want the amount of spills to be at 0. But here we're talking about less than 5 millionths of 1% of the total volume transferred. That's pretty darn good. Pretty darn good. Now, looking back a decade to 2005, there were 70,931 tank vessel transfers in the state of California from January of 2005 through August 25th of this year. And of these, the Marine Environmental Protection Division monitored 32,033 of them, or just over 45%. And of the more than 8.1 billion barrels of product involved in these monitored transfers, a total of 57.4 barrels were spilled. Now, put in terms of percentage, I don't know that I, even in my financial expertise, can calculate the decimals out, but spill volume was less than 1/1,000,000 of 1% of the total volume transferred during those 16 years. And this is all really because of the great diligence of what we've been able to do at the state with our great partners. Now, the State Lands Commission is also responsible for enforcing Chapter 31F of the California Building Code, commonly referred to as the Marine Oil Terminal Engineering and Maintenance Standards, what you all know as MOTEMs. And the goal of the MOTEMs program is to upgrade existing marine oil terminals to current standards. And this will extend their useful lifespans, prevent oil spills, and more importantly, protect public health, safety, and the environment. MOTEMs also define standards for the construction of new terminals. And they address key concerns such as seismic activity, potential tsunamis, and impending sea level rise. Now, the standards that we've laid out here in California are the first of their kind in the world. And MOTEMs have inspired other jurisdictions and standards, and they've been replicated in marine oil terminal design, both nationally and internationally. So this is another arena in which California is leading, and certainly California is modeling for the rest of the world. The United States Navy has voluntarily agreed to comply with MOTEMs and is using MOTEMs requirements to rebuild, and they are carried out by licensed California engineers. And to address the deficiencies identified during MOTEM audits, multiple marine oil terminal design upgrades and construction projects were initiated, requiring budget planning and resolution of local permitting issues. Overall, more than 60% of the initial audit deficiencies identified have been addressed. The implementation of MOTEMs at different California terminals is in various stages, and major construction is proceeding rapidly in many facilities. Seismic structural and fender system upgrades have been completed or are under construction at 17 terminals, and 4 terminals have been completely rebuilt or will soon complete new construction to address major deficiencies identified during the MOTEMs audit. And I should just say here that so much of what we do with respect to these responsibilities is not done by one entity alone. And I think what is so important for us, and certainly as I view the role of the State Lands Commission, the partnerships really matter. They really matter. Not just with our sister agencies and federal agencies, but certainly with our local jurisdictions, and more importantly with industry, because we have to work together on our common goal of protecting our resources. Safety audits have been enormously successful in reducing the risk of oil spills on states' offshore oil leases. We always want, as I said, oil spill volume to be at 0, but it's very encouraging that the average spillage from all facets of offshore oil producing leases is down to half a barrel per year. Half a barrel per year. I think that deserves a round of applause. There have been 0 spills from pipelines connected to the offshore platforms, and even with this success, the State Lands Commission is making offshore pipeline requirements more protective by applying the knowledge learned from onshore pipeline accidents to the Commission's regulations. So this whole idea, and I think this is true, and why all of us should be proud of what we're doing, is that there's constant improvement, constantly assessing how we can do better. And our commission takes pride in knowing that our offshore oil pollution and safety risk prevention programs are among the most effective and successful in the country. We also believe our offshore lease pollution and safety risk management programs are a model for other jurisdictions and authorities. And adherence to the Commission's lease terms and regulations can be challenging for our lessees, but their professional cooperation and compliance is a testament of their commitment to achieve a high level of safety and environmental stewardship. And this is something that I've really learned in my short time here. There's no scrimping around safety. And it's safety first is, I think, an appropriate motto for all parties involved in this arena. The State Lands Commission continues to enjoy our energy partnership with the City of Long Beach, and we are grateful for the many years of mutual cooperation among the city and our staff. Now, just moving to the work of OSPR. For the past 25 years, the California Department of Fish and Wildlife's OSPR has been the state's lead for oil spill response. And that office also holds public trustee authority for wildlife and habitat. OSPR ensures the best achievable protection of California's natural resources through comprehensive prevention, preparedness, cleanup, and restoration activities. In 2014, OSPR responsibility expanded to petroleum-based oil spills in all waters of the state, both inland and coastal. And prior to July 2014, OSPR only had jurisdiction for oil spills in the marine and coastal waters of the state. In September of 2015, OSPR implemented emergency regulations that require companies that handle large volumes of oil anywhere in the state, like railroad, inland producers, and storage and transfer facilities, to submit and maintain contingency plans and certificates of financial responsibility. And to date, including marine and inland, OSPR has reviewed and approved contingency plans and certificates of financial responsibility for more than 1,800 facilities, vessels, pipelines, railroads, and other regulated entities. That's a workload. This expansion represents a significant increase in OSPR's preparedness and response responsibilities. In the past 2 years, OSPR has been able to add 35 staff, opened a Bakersfield office, and located responders in remote yet vulnerable areas where rail and pipelines are big threats to critical waterways and habitats. OSPR staff continue to work hard in coordinating efforts throughout California with federal, tribal, state, and local government partners. Since 2007, through its grant program, OSPR has delivered 49 oil spill response assets to 20 of the state's 58 counties, and provided 12 of the state's coastal counties with more than $900,000 to assist with oil spill planning. Now, despite prevention, oil spills still do occur. Recent major onshore oil spills, pipeline spills in Santa Barbara and Ventura counties show that the importance of a robust and well-rehearsed oil response preparedness and response program is essential. I understand we have a drill plan at some point here while we're all here, so but this is always about being at the ready and certainly being sure that we know the expectations of those with whom we are working in response. From just 2012 to 2015, OSPR responded to over 3,800 oil spills throughout the state of California, an average of 975 per year. In 2015, we experienced the Refugio Beach spill in Santa Barbara County, the South Bay spill in Manhattan Beach, the Alameda Marina mystery sheen in the city of Alameda, where I live, and I remember that, and the Shell Wharf spill in the city of Martinez. Major 2016 spills include the Grove pipeline spill in the city of Ventura and the spill by the motor vessel Istra Ace in the Los Angeles harbor. You know, what I find remarkable about OSPR is just the magnitude of responsibility that office has. And yet, as I say, what gets often covered are the big spills, and yet you see, and just from the numbers I cited today, they are at the ready every single day, 24/7, and that's very, very remarkable. We're so appreciative. Now, there are a number of human-made hazards along the California coast associated with past oil extraction and other commercial activity. And these include abandoned oil and gas wells, also called legacy wells, as well as piers and jetties and seawalls. And these coastal hazards pose a threat to public health and safety and the environment. And I was very proud to stand with Santa Barbara State Senator Hannibal Jackson to address them. I sponsored Senate Bill 900, carried by Senator Jackson, to establish a coastal hazard remediation program at the State Lands Commission. And through this program, the Commission would complete an in-depth inventory of legacy wells and other hazards. And through the study, we would prioritize wells to be capped and hazards to be mitigated. SB 900 passed the legislature with strong bipartisan support, and I'm sorry to report that the governor vetoed the bill, but the great hope is that he does recognize that this is an issue, and in his veto message directed his Department of Conservation to work with the State Lands Commission with looking into this area of legacy wells. And so we look forward to our work with the Department of Conservation, and certainly will guide the effort going forward. The California State Lands Commission also leads the Marine Invasive Species Program, tasked with the crucial role of helping prevent the introduction of non-indigenous species into California waters. And aquatic species are often carried from one region to another in the ballast tanks of a large vessel, or as biofouling on a ship's hull. Once moved and established in a new locale, eradication of these invasive species is expensive and often impossible, so in California we practice prevention first. The threat posed to human health, the environment, the economy by invasive species is immense. Cornell University estimates invasive plant and animal species cost the United States economy $120 billion per year. Invasive species also compete with native species for food, upsetting critical ecosystems. No less than half a dozen campaigns have been launched by concerned ecologists and clever chefs to encourage people to eat invasive species. How many of you have had carp, lionfish, bullfrogs, and many more? And with catchy names like Can't Beat 'em, Eat 'em, and Eradication by Mastication, these campaigns are really aimed at, right before lunch, are really aimed at, be careful what are really aimed at raising public awareness about the threats that we face. And eating them would hardly take a bite out of the problem. So we see this as it is an issue of enormous magnitude that certainly, again, being at the ready to look at prevention first. For well over 100 years, large vessels from cruise ships to cargo carriers have carried water in steel ballast tanks to improve balance and stability. Some large vessels could hold millions of gallons. And this ballast water and every organism that lives in it is picked up when cargo and passenger loads are low or the water is rough. Then it's released to accommodate heavier loads or navigate shallow coastal waters. And with every ballast intake or discharge comes the redistribution of countless forms of plant and animal life, including eggs and larvae. Ballast water moves more than 7,000 different species around the world each day. A single discharge can release more than 21 million plankton. In the last 2 years, between July 1st, 2014 and June 30th of this year, the volume of unmanaged discharged ballast water, and that's ballast water that poses the greatest threat of species introduction, was down 39% compared to the prior 2 years. We have seen a sharp decrease in the total volume of compliant versus non-compliant ballast water since the implementation of an enhanced compliant assessment and violation notification program in 2014. The number of ballast water management operational violations has also dropped substantially since the implementation of the program. And the shipping industry, I just want to commend because it is doing a terrific job of responding to the State Lands Commission Enhanced Ballast Water Management Enforcement Program. And it's really through their proactive efforts that to properly manage ballast water that is increasing the protection of California's waters from species introductions. And furthermore, our commission recently approved regulations to adopt an enforcement and hearing process for violations of the Marine Invasive Species Act. So these enforcement regulations will work in tandem with existing outreach efforts to further improve industry compliance and protection of California waters. And again, the common theme that's being woven through each of these areas is partnership. Besides ballast water, the second major cause of the introduction of non-indigenous aquatic species is biofouling. The accumulation of life forms from microorganisms to mollusks on wetted surfaces, such as the hull of a ship or its propulsion systems. Remaining in one location over a long period of time is a risk factor for accumulating biofouling communities, and microorganisms such as algae form a biofilm that allows larger organisms to gain a foothold. There have been more long residency periods reported by vessels arriving at California ports during 2015 than any other year since we began collecting this data in 2008. There's been an 81% increase in residency periods of 10 days or more since 2008. And this poses a tremendous risk of species introduction when these vessels arrive at California ports without properly managing their biofouling prior to arrival. So while we're making great strides in the management of ballast water, biofouling management policies must be significantly strengthened to manage the entire vessel as a vector of non-indigenous species introductions in California waters. Our commission staff is working proactively with the regulated industry, research scientists, environmental organizations, and state, federal, and international agencies to develop comprehensive approaches to prevent the introduction of non-indigenous species from vessels that arrive at California ports. And it's really in the interest of shipping companies to play an active role in the solution, as biofouling can cause expensive damage to ships. It can increase fuel costs and shipping times by creating extra drag and reducing vessel speed. Now, as chair of the State Lands Commission, I take our responsibility to protect California's marine resources very seriously. Jennifer mentioned earlier, the Commission adopted a strategic plan that will guide our work over the next period of 5 years. And I just want to say that one of the great sources of pride that I think the Commission and certainly the Commission staff can have in the formulation of this plan is that this was a very stakeholder-driven process. And I believe when we had the stakeholders in one room, it was the first time that we heard oil interests actually say, we've never been in the same room with environmental organizations, to talk about the direction of the work that we need to do together. And this is, I believe, the best way that we can reach the best outcomes for how we're going to tackle the challenges that I've just mentioned. We work tirelessly and relentlessly to protect our coasts from oil spills, as well as the introduction of invasive species, both of which can be detrimental to our environment and our economy. But all of us in this room know there is still much more to do. But I am extremely proud of the work that we've done, and I very much look forward and have been learning about the latest advances in design and technology that can make our efforts even more effective. And it is not lost either that not only in my role as the State Lands Commission, but as controller, I serve on 79 boards and commissions, all of which, they gave me the day off to be here today. But all of which, I believe, really centered around how do we really assess our risks over the long term. And I don't believe any of us in our thinking, regardless of where our focus may be, is immune from having to make considerations about the effects of global climate change. Whether we're talking about affordable housing, transportation systems, whether I look at how our tax structure is going to support what we do going forward as an economy to spur economic growth, whether I look at how we engage companies as a member of the pension boards, and make sure that corporations are looking at their ability to create long-term value. And so we can get the highest investment return possible on pension assets. Global climate change is the risk of our day. And as we look at the work that all of us are doing together, that we have accomplished together, I'm very pleased to see this specific focus on sea level rise. We certainly are starting to pay heightened attention on ocean acidification, and just so many issues now that are new. But yet we know that we can take comfort in the fact that because of the great partnerships that have been formed to deal with some of the issues that I've just mentioned, that those partnerships will carry us well in terms of looking and finding the solutions for how we're going to mitigate the effects of things like sea level rise and ocean acidification. So, as I said, we sit here as the 6th largest economy in the world. And one of the great things about being a large economy is that we have, I think, the flexibility to be innovators. We have the flexibility to lead in terms of developing technologies. And as we already know, in many of these areas, California has been leading the nation and the rest of the world. But also as the 6th largest economy, we have to be sure that we don't lose sight of the fact that our resources are finite in terms of our ability to really get a foothold deeply into some of these issues. Which is why prevention first is such a critical concept. Such a critical concept. If we can head off the drastic effects of some of these issues, we will do right by not only our responsibility as stewards of our environment, but certainly we will do our responsibility with respect to being sure that our fiscal resources are being directed to the areas most in need. So I could not be more proud to be with all of you. I understand the last commissioner who was here was my former boss, Governor Gray Davis. This commission does, State Lands Commission does such different work from what I do in my other roles. But it certainly informs what I do with respect to how I know I need to approach the rest of the stakeholders as I serve on the other boards and commissions to say we need to pay attention to these issues. It has an economic impact, and it will hamper our ability to continue to look at our business future, our future for the resources of state government, and we have to work smarter together and be sure that as we move forward, that the solutions that we are going to develop include all parties. And I want to thank those of you who represent industry who are here today, because you're critical. You are critical. And we rely on you for helping with a lot of this transition in terms of your business practices, but we also are ready to support what we need to do together to reach the common goal of being the top stewards of our marine resources that will continue to keep our economy strong. Thank you all very much for the opportunity to speak.